Now I Toucan. I think these are all Miss sons.
Amen. R.I.P.
Yes,
Sorry for your loss.
Oh, dude, yeah. Yeah, two bad celebrity deaths in like a matter of a month.
I know.
Toby Keith and then the Dragon Ball creator.
I know. That's tough. Tough.
I like your tie, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
What is it on there? Fish?
Well, it's fish, but yeah, Goodwill. You know, you never know what you'll get.
Yeah, Goodwill's a good thing.
Yeah.
I thought it was fruit for a second, but I like it.
Fruit? Yeah. There might be. I mean, I'm always scouring clearance racks for good ties. So just let me know if you get any.
Where do you go to? What Goodwill do you go to?
Heads up. Oh, I'll tell you soon.
Yeah.
Heads up.
Good morning. Vice Chair Lieu and I are pleased to be joined by House Foreign Affairs Committee leaders, Madeleine Dean and Jason Crow. While Donald Trump dines with dictators like Viktor Orban, President Biden and House Democrats want to defend democracy both at home and abroad. Vladimir Putin is marching across Europe, and he will not stop if he conquers Ukraine. And Donald Trump has encouraged Russia to attack, quote, whoever the hell they want, even if it means a NATO ally. This isn't just an applause line for the MAGA base. This has been Donald Trump's foreign policy approach as president. He wants to weaken NATO and empower dictators who trample human rights and international law. House Republicans continue to do Donald Trump's bidding by blocking help to Ukraine to defeat Putin. House Democrats, and Senate Republicans are trying to pass urgent national security funding because Ukraine is running out of ammunition and they're running out of time. We have a straightforward path to deliver the aid Ukraine needs to fight back, and that's by passing the Senate's National Security Supplemental without delay. House Republicans have a choice: stand with us to ensure America remains a leader of the free world, or stand with Vladimir Putin. Vice Chair Ted Lieu.
Thank you, Chairman Aguilar. Last Thursday, President Biden gave a commanding State of the Union address. He was strong, he was agile, he delivered a vision for America focused on lowering costs, protecting our national security, protecting Social Security and Medicare. At some points, he also stuttered. And that's because President Biden has had a lifelong issue with stuttering from when he was a child. Donald Trump this weekend made fun of President Biden's stutter. Donald Trump has made fun of people with disabilities. He had a record of doing that. Donald Trump is an embarrassment to the United States of America, and Trump should apologize to everyone who stutters and every family member that has a member who stutters. We also saw that President Biden has delivered a budget to Congress, and this budget lowers costs, it reduces the deficit, and it protects Social Security and Medicare. That's in contrast to Donald Trump's budgets when he submitted as president that cut Social Security and Medicare. And just this weekend, Donald Trump said again that there's a lot you can do on entitlements, including cutting Social Security and Medicare. President Biden and Democrats will defend Social Security and Medicare and protect them from being cut. And now it's my great honor to introduce my colleague who I serve with on the House Foreign Affairs Committee and the House Judiciary Committee, the great Madeleine Dean from Pennsylvania.
Very generous, thank you. I'm delighted to be here with all of you today to raise the urgency about our support for Ukraine. I'm Madeleine Dean. I serve the 4th Congressional District of Pennsylvania, which is suburban Philadelphia, home to one of the largest Ukrainian American communities in our country. And for more than 2 years, and really for the 8 years before that, I listened to my neighbors grieve as their homeland suffers incredible losses. In the 747 days since Putin began this war, more than 10,000 civilian Ukrainians have died, and 25,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed. It is Putin's campaign of relentless carnage and war crimes. And still they fight for their freedom. They fight for democracy. They fight for Ukraine and the future of Europe. It is a future that rejects Putin's brutal land-taking agenda Georgia in 2008, Crimea in 2014, and now more of Ukraine's sovereign land for the last 2 years. We must ask ourselves, when and where will the Russian invasion stop? Because Putin seems cruelly focused on rebuilding the Soviet Union, brazenly threatening the democratic will of European nations. We mustn't forget we are all connected. What happens to our European allies matters. What happens there happens to us, to our own national security, to our own economy, to our very democracy. We must fulfill our duty as the indispensable nation. We cannot stand by. We must stand committed to our allies, united in democracy. For 2 years, the United States, President Biden has fulfilled that promise, leading more than 50 nations in supporting and supplying Ukraine with the resources it needs to protect its people, its land, and its sovereignty. We must not abandon Ukraine now. To do so would be a failure to protect a young democracy, a threat to our own military readiness and national security, and a failure to the United States to honor our commitment to a crucial ally. Abandoning Ukraine is to really abandon ourselves. It's simply un-American. We must pass the supplemental for full support for Ukraine. And now I have the pleasure of yielding to my colleague on the Foreign Affairs Committee, Jason Crow.
Good morning. I'm Jason Crow from Colorado. I want to thank Chairman Aguilar, Vice Chair Lieu, and Madeline Dean for your leadership and support. There are moments in history that will dictate the course of events for generations to come, that we'll look back on and ask, what did we do or what did we not do? We are at one of those moments. It is time to pass the National Security Supplemental to support Ukraine and support America's national security. I want to be very clear that this bill is not charity. This bill is in America's national security and economic interest. For less than 5% of what we normally spend on our defense budget, this bill will do a number of things. First, it will stop Vladimir Putin in his tracks and prevent him from rolling through Europe. Europe is America's largest trading partner. Our economy, our businesses, and American workers rely on a stable, free, and prosperous Europe. It's in our economic self-interest to ensure that that remains the case. Number two, it'll ensure stable food prices and food supply. A significant portion of the world's grain comes from Ukraine. And if we think Vladimir Putin will allow that to continue if he takes over Ukraine, we are fooling ourselves. So we will secure the world's food supplies. Number three, we have 100,000 U.S. troops and their families living in Europe. And we have to protect those troops, those families, and our NATO partners. We must pass this bill. It makes sense. It will help secure our military, our national security, our economy, and we have to do it now. Ukraine is not running out of courage and bravery. Ukraine is running out of ammunition. Let's get this done.
Well said. Thanks, Jason, and thanks, Madeline. Questions? Eric.
The process, I guess you guys have a discharge petition. It seems like Fitzpatrick might be altering his to get more Democratic support. What's the process for getting this done?
Look, the process for getting this done is the fastest way is for the Speaker to put this on the floor. This has the National Security Supplemental that passed in the Senate, bipartisan support, Democrats and Republicans. To put that on the president's desk, we need to pass the Senate version. Rosa DeLauro, Jim McGovern went to the floor, I believe an hour ago, to turn our discharge on. So it is now live, so we can collect signatures for the National Security Supplemental. Rosa DeLauro has indicated that she will, that will be the Senate language. So what we are asking our colleagues, Democrats and Republicans, is to sign the discharge petition that will bring to the floor the Senate national security bipartisan supplemental. That is the fastest and easiest way to solve this issue, to provide the relief that Jason Crow discussed. Anything else, Eric?
Well, I'm just wondering, is there any path forward with Fitzpatrick, or is that really
Look, I think Leader Scalise spoke about this as well, I think, in public. I don't think that there's a lot of Republican support for the Fitzpatrick discharge. As I said previously, these are well-meaning, members, but we disagree that that is the right solution. A solution that does not include, and judging it based on what is in it today, does not have humanitarian support. And we know that there are ongoing discussions, but under any scenario, that bill, that discharge, would force a vote on something that still has to go to the U.S. Senate, and that could take weeks or months to deliver the critical aid that's necessary. Michael.
Thank you, Chairman. Since there's a surplus of foreign affairs Democrats here, I want to ask about
I'm out of my league here. There's 3 of them behind me, so just
any of you. I want to ask about Haiti. The Prime Minister announced that he will resign after a transition period. And yesterday, Congressman Mike Collins from Georgia reposted a picture of the chaos going on in Haiti. He quoted, "Looks like a shithole country to me," harkening back to Trump's 2018 comments. I just want to get your thoughts on that type of language. I want to get your thoughts on the Prime Minister announcing his resignation and how Haiti fits into this broader conversation that we're having about foreign policy.
Jason Crow.
Yeah, thank you. Obviously, I couldn't disagree more with the disparaging comments of some of our Republican colleagues on the people of Haiti, who are people who deserve rights and dignity and freedom and prosperity, just like people do everywhere throughout the world. And this is our backyard. This is the Western Hemisphere. We cannot ignore this. There are moral reasons why we need to support the people of Haiti for the reasons I described. They deserve dignity and rights and prosperity. But we also have our own reasons to support it as well. If Haiti continues to dissolve, we are going to see an influx of people escaping the island and coming here for refuge that we're going to have to deal with, right? So it is actually economically more efficient and better for the American people to make investments and to help stabilize Haiti and get them on a better path in Haiti than to deal with a refugee influx, which is why it's important that we engage. And I appreciate the Biden administration dedicating over $100 million to help support the MSS. This is a perfect example where the international community has stepped up. Kenya has dedicated 1,000 troops and has already trained those troops. We've vetted 400 of them. That MSS, that security force, is actually close to deployment. What needs to happen now is we need to fulfill our commitment to help fund that, to help provide equipment for that, and also to help transport that MSS. Those are the commitments we have made to help create more stability. And I do think it was a good sign that Prime Minister Henry has agreed to step down. I think that's positive. That's certainly what the administration has been pushing for, and that opens up space for a better on-ramp towards a kind of a resolution for all the parties involved. So I think we're moving in the right direction, but we have to move fast. One thing I will say is that Republicans are actually holding, they put a hold on a significant amount of the money that we have dedicated for the MSS. They must release that hold. If they don't release that hold, we are losing valuable time. And again, what we'll see is an influx of refugees that we'll have to ultimately deal with. So if they want to help us prevent that, they will release that hold.
Just add to that. Would you tell me which member of Congress paraphrased what we know the former president once said? Collins of Georgia. I echo everything that Jason Crow just said. We had a briefing, Republicans and Democrats, last week about the situation in Haiti. And that kind of a comment displays the extraordinary contrast between how Democrats take a look at foreign affairs, the global affairs, people suffering from criminality, corruption, gang violence, versus those who just want to demean those who are suffering these things. So I do think it was a positive step that Henri stepped down, and that there will be, we hope, and there's global support for this, there will be new leadership that will separate the gangs from leading this country. And we, as America, as a nearby neighbor, have an important role to play. I echo also what Mr. Crow said about releasing the funds. It is irresponsible that the Republicans are holding up that support.
Question, Nick?
Going back to the Fitzpatrick bill, we talked a bit about the foreign aid part, but what about the immigration sections of that? Would something like the Remain in Mexico part of that be a non-starter for others in the caucus?
Well, I think that there would be concerns based on what Mexico has indicated. I think it would be impractical to actually, implement that policy now. Mexico has said that they will not implement that policy. But look, I think the important piece here is when it comes to border security and immigration reform, Republicans walked away from this. That's what they did. The former president told them that he would rather have the issue than the solution, and they walked away with it. And poor Jim Langford is standing there having negotiated something and then has to vote against what he negotiated with for one reason and one reason only, not because it's bad policy, but because the former president told him to. Anybody else? Chad.
Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
You talk about what happened with the Langford bill, and we know what happened with Republicans on that border package here. This morning, there's a coalition of House Democrats putting together this border security caucus. Do you feel that there is concern among some Democrats, like Tom Suozzi ran on border security, he was part of this group as the vice chair, that because there's not a solution and because they have, some of them, discomfort with how the administration has handled the border, that they're trying to build some distance or at least say to the voters, hey, we're going to take our degree of responsibility for this, even if we can't pass something on border? Is that what they're trying to do?
Look, I think what a lot of members want is to fully fund the needs that border security has. And, what the president had negotiated, and Senate Democrats and some Senate Republicans at the time, was a surge in those resources. And the president has said very clearly, more immigration judges, more border patrol, more customs and immigration, personnel. Those are the things that we can do, and lowering the time, reducing the time in which people receive their adjudication within the immigration process. That's what we can do to help meaningfully address the system. The problem for House Democrats is we don't have that ability because the Senate Republicans walked away from this deal, because Speaker Johnson called this a non-starter, because former President Trump told them that they want the issue. We don't have that ability. So I think what you're seeing from members is, a reflection that there are solutions out there. There are solutions that have been bipartisan. We won't get that opportunity, but surging those resources and providing that justice and adjudicating that process in a fair and efficient way is what House Democrats have talked about and the president has talked about.
Them trying to build some real estate for their own political reasons, going into the fall here between themselves and the administration, or even to say, look, we're doing what we can do, even if something like that.
What we can do in front of us here is pass the Homeland Security Appropriations Bill to fully fund FY24. We haven't done that. We haven't passed a DoD bill. We haven't passed Homeland. There's a series of bills that we can pass, hopefully by next week, in order to fund Homeland Security priorities. If members are serious about putting resources down at the border, that's the first thing that we can do, and the easiest thing that is in front of us. But that's where our focus should be.
Could I layer in one more thing? I too won't decide whether or not it's a political move. I think it is a sincere move on the part of Democrats to say we recognize we must do more. And it is amazingly frustrating that Donald Trump pulled the rug out from under a hard fought for compromise piece of legislation that nobody is totally happy with, but more resources are needed. The only thing I wanted to layer in there is if Republicans are really serious about doing something about fentanyl coming into this country, poisoning our children, 110,000 people die each year from overdose, or sometimes I call it just straight poisoning. 70% of that is fentanyl related. If Republicans really want to start saving lives, flood the resources to the border. Right now, we scan only about 2% of that which is coming in, and cargo is going uninspected. We have the ability to do it. We just don't have the will to put the dollars toward it because the Republicans are sitting on their hands as our children die.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about this TikTok bill that's going to come to the floor tomorrow that would ban TikTok, but if ByteDance doesn't divest it, then TikTok would have to shut down in the U.S. in September. Do you think that this will pass with most votes from your caucus? And then also, the TikTok CEO is in town today. Are any of you meeting with him while he's here?
I don't have a meeting scheduled. I'll let the members speak for themselves. I think a strong 50-0 vote is indicative of where the House of Representatives is. We talked briefly. Ranking Member Pallone presented this bill and also the data mining bill that should be on the floor next week as well. He presented both bills that passed out of committee, both on roll call votes, 50-0. So he presented those this morning. We're encouraging members to go to the classified 1 p.m. briefing. It's clear that some of the material that members on the House Energy and Commerce Committee heard helped formulate their positions and opinions on this issue. All members should have the ability to benefit from that information, and that's why we're encouraging members to go. I'll withhold comments until I have the briefing myself. Others?
Thank you. So there's been a lot of talk about the president's use of the term illegal to describe the suspected murder of Laken Riley. Olivia Dalton came out this week and said that he did not apologize. He used a different word, and some of your colleagues have been critical of President Biden's use of that word. I was curious if you think the president should apologize and if you have an issue with the term illegal immigrant.
It's not a word that I use, but it's also a word that is in statute many times. So my belief, and I think most members choose not to use it. We think it's a demeaning term. The president said he wished he would have said undocumented. That's it. Case is closed. It's fine. The president gave an amazing speech, 68 minutes, with high energy, and that was one small back and forth with a member who was, shouting at him from the floor. So I don't put any more stock in it than what it is. The president said that his preferred term, and I'm willing to move on, and I think a lot of members are too.
Just going back to the TikTok bill for a moment, some members, Democrats and Republicans, have raised some concerns about targeting one specific company, whether that would stand up to legal scrutiny, whether that's just appropriate for Congress to do in general. What's your view on that? Do you have any concerns about targeting one company?
Look, I mean, I'm concerned about misinformation and disinformation across social media platforms. That's something that continues to be left over from my January 6th days of information that we gathered along the way. I think there are national security imperatives that are in front of us related to this company that has foreign ownership. I'll wait to go to the briefing before we comment more, but I think that's kind of where a lot of members are at this point. Does anybody else want to help me out here?
I'll say something.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, this is not about targeting a company, and this effort is not about a broader addressing of the impact of social media on our society, the impact of algorithms. That's a larger discussion. As a parent of young children, I have my own struggles with social media and the impact of algorithm. But that's not what we're dealing with here. What we're dealing with here is very specific concerns about the structure of this company and its relationship with the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party. And as a member of the Intelligence Committee, those are concerns that I share.
You spoke
a little bit about different ways that Republicans could be addressing border security and how they seem to be dragging their feet a little bit? There's a resolution coming to the floor today about condemning the Biden administration's immigration policies. How are Democrats feeling about that resolution, and do you think that this is helping or hurting the situation in the long run?
Well, I think this is just another example of Republicans wanting the issue more than the solution. Passing senses of Congress and resolutions isn't going to solve it. Actually putting resources in and working in a bipartisan way to solve the issue is the only way that it's going to work. I've spent a lot of time on this issue, in general, in prior Congresses. The only way border security and immigration reform gets done is in a bipartisan process. So using resolutions and time and time again, this is a redo of resolutions that they've done in the past. But that's kind of par for what this group does. They can't pass a lot of laws, so they're gonna pass some things that make them feel good. Anything else? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So